Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Horse Geeks podcast, where we look at horses and riding from the inside out. I'm Kirsten Nelsen, professional horse trainer, and my co-host, essentially, Deb Romero, certified Alexander Technique instructor. And my apologies about not being consistent with the podcast recently. That is on me, not Deb. I was invited to present some videos for an online horse fair. It was sort of last minute, and I have been busting my chops trying to get a couple of things ready. Yeah. And of course, that techie learning curve comes into it
Oh,
because I'm still
no, thank
climbing the
you.
mountain of technology to figure out how things work. But to share with you guys, the horse fair that I will be at least uh, putting up two videos. It's an online horse fair called uh, Art of the Horseman,
Oh,
Online
I gotta
Horse
write that down.
Fair 2025. So it's called Art of the Horseman. And I have at least two videos I'm going to share, maybe more if it works out. But I'm already a little bit behind the deadline, so that might be all I get up there. And the dates are February 22nd and 23rd.
Are
Um,
these on, how are they
I
being
don't
presented?
have the webs. I don't have all the details, but I
Okay,
know if you Google art,
that Art of the Horseman.
yeah, Art of the Horseman Online Horse Fair 2025.
Ah, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Art of the Horseman Online Horse Fair 2025. And it's February 22nd and 23rd of 2025. So it's coming up quick, and that's why I had to kind of put everything else on hold for a couple weeks to that and the holidays and Christmas. So
And snow.
yeah, sorry. We'll get to the point, I promise. What are we talking about today? We we kind of decided,
Yeah, sorta.
and it came up like what was it that you said that kind of generated
S-
this idea?
So I was with a client who is in the process of moving her horse to another barn. And she brought something up. She said, well, I might not be able to get to this barn as often because I'm further away. So I'm going to have somebody else work my horse to keep him fit. And I
Mm.
thought, what does that mean?
Yeah, and then
What?
that sort of tied into what had crossed my plate recently, which was we have to trot and canter our horses in order to warm them up. And it kind of goes hand in hand, that sort of the need for speed to either stay fit or warm
Mhm.
up. And you and I look at things very differently from that.
I
And
do now. I probably way back when I was lunging my thoroughbred for 3 hours before my class.
right, but the more you and I have learned about how bodies really work, that
Right.
sort of whole way of doing things really changed.
Yeah.
And so we'll talk about why. So the topic is something about fitness and warm-ups. Or what also came up is it also ties into that idea that exercise is not neutral. Like we all think exercise is neutral, and the way we
Hmm.
exercise can really either deplete health or support health. It can
Yes.
either weaken the body or strengthen the body. Like it doesn't, like just because we're running up a hill, it doesn't mean we're going to get fitter. It could mean we fall and have an injury. It
Mhm.
could mean we're going to develop joint arthritis in the knees, the ankles, the hips. The more we do it, it could mean we pull a muscle or a tendon or ligament. Like it's just not neutral.
Yeah,
It's
I watched it was an online webinar, and Thomas Myers, who's my fascia guru guy that I go to, was working with some of the performance trainers for the Commanders football team here in
mhm.
DC, and it was fascinating the new research they have on each individual athlete had a specific warm up.
Yes.
It wasn't, I was blown away with the new information and technology about that, about, oh, well, this guy is weak here and strong here, and this is the warm up he needs to do his job. Thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, that's where sports medicine for people is just about
Right.
50 years ahead of what we know with horses, but it's not that different. And there's a place in Florida, in Bradenton, Florida, that's just dedicated to that exact thing for all kinds of athletes around the world. Like really analyzing where they need to gain strength or how they need to gain strength and what their specific warm-ups are as well. That's really what you and I have learned to do with people and horses.
Yeah.
And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like we don't get a ton of cold weather in Florida, but we get down near freezing. And we can have frost like a couple of nights. It's a big deal, right? And we can have frost. And so, like my really old car that I still dearly love, it has like 270,000 miles on it. And even in the summer, I leave a little time for my car to warm up because it's old, takes a lot of oil, right? So I check the oil and warm it up all the time. I love that car. And so when it was chilly, I'm like, oh, I got to leave like 10 or 15 minutes for Sonic to warm up, right? I call him Sonic. And and I'm sitting there waiting for him to warm up and I go, why do we think running horses faster warms them up? Like
Wow,
nothing mechanical is going to warm up that way. It's going
that's
to
a good
stress
point.
the system. And so if we look at the body as a machine, I go, you would never on a cold, snowy day jump in your car and start trotting down the road, right? 30, 40 miles an hour. Or you would never just jump on the highway in order to warm up your car,
Right.
right? And
And as a body worker, I went and got body work this morning with a really good friend, and we were talking about this exact thing about even doing hands-on on a horse or a person. Can we affect the tissue we want to affect if it's not warmed up properly?
and what does that mean, warmed up properly? So
I know. Well, I can't
when you're
move.
doing hands on somebody,
Right,
what does that mean? If you hit some tissue that needs to be warmed up, what does that
right.
mean?
So I mainly work in the fascia world when I'm working on people. And the fascia doesn't have a great blood supply. So that tissue has to physically be warmed up, whether I use an instrument, a warm
Like,
blanket,
okay.
hot stones. I used to do hot stone massage or movement. Karen Loving and I, who is a fantastic body worker, we're forgetting that even slow movement to get the blood going, the circulation, the
Yeah.
lymphatic. People don't think about the lymphatic system. That has to be functioning to take all of the toxic stuff out of the body.
Right.
So by over revving it too quickly, you're overstimulating the system.
Yeah, because as soon as you sort of hit a threshold, which is internal, subjective, unpredictable, always changing, you're going to tip that hormone balance from sort of the pleasure hormones that are going to
Right.
warm up the body gently and support health into what we call the stress hormones, which are actually going to deplete the body and make things a little tighter. So warming up, like you wouldn't put your client and say, you need to go for a jog around the block and then I can work on you. Like we
Right.
just don't do that to people because warming up means just increasing circulation.
Right.
That's
That's
all
a
it
good way to
means.
put it.
It doesn't require stress hormones. It doesn't require
Mhm.
fast movement, but it, like you're saying, it might require movement. But
Right.
the movement also shouldn't be tipping the body into a stress response, which
It's
is going
kind
to,
of like it reminds me about the car because if you think about it in the cold right now, the oil is really thick.
Yeah, like cold blood, right? It's
Yeah,
not
like
moving
us,
around. Yeah,
It's pretty
exactly.
cold here in Virginia right now. So it takes me longer.
Oh, and that's all relative because
That's
like,
relative.
yeah,
Well, yeah. But
no, it's
just
like
the
you can
thought of the
tell,
horses moving in this type of weather.
yes, keeping them moving is healthy.
Hmm.
Making them move fast might not be. Kind of
Right.
depends on the individual, right? But yeah, I thought about that when I was warming up my car. And then I used to have a truck I called Big Red that was a F350 diesel land boat. And it's like diesels, which are really powerful and last forever. They
Mhm.
put in a human error system that is a little light that you can't even start the car until that light goes off, which
The glow
means,
plugs.
yeah,
Yep.
the glow plugs have to warm it up before you can even start it, and then you got to warm it up.
Yep.
And when I lived in Colorado, you plugged that in at night.
Yeah,
Like,
I saw a truck. I saw a truck when I went to Karen's today with, I call them antennas,
yeah,
hanging out of the front of it so that they could plug it in.
yeah,
It's that
yeah.
cold.
And so it really does have more to do with like temperature
Mm,
warmth, not sweating, but just temperature warmth is what starts to warm up the body.
right.
And I go just walking around, right? Like if I'm teaching and it's snowing out, I never sit down. I am constantly moving under 600 layers. It's like that movement makes all the difference. And
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be fast or furious. So when we look at maintaining fitness, even, like now, if we need to take weight off for people, the new recommendation is long periods of walking
Mhm.
and never tipping because what perpetuates weight gain are the stress hormones.
Right.
And so the harder you work out, the more weight you gain. And if you want to lose weight, you have to have movement without cortisol, movement without stress
The stress
hormones
hormone.
because that's what allows the body to say, oh, we don't need all this weight and start burning fat. Whether it's a horse or a human, that's really the approach is long periods of relaxed movement is now proven to burn more fat than trying to make them
The
sweat it off.
explosive, back in the
Hmm.
day, it was those explosive movements that we wanted to do. This,
Yeah, or
yeah,
really hard work. Like
yeah,
we feel the harder we're working, the more calories we're burning. But now we know it can have a reverse effect depending on whether we're doing exercise in what's called a relaxation response, we're doing
mm,
exercise in what's called a stress response. So, and these responses are universal, like they're unconscious, right? So it doesn't mean a relaxation response means you're taking a nap.
right.
It just directs all the unconscious functions of the body to sort of optimize for the level of work we're doing. Without releasing stress hormones, we're releasing the pleasure hormones that support health and don't tax the body. And so, as soon as we're triggered at a certain amount of physical stress, mental, emotional stress, it doesn't matter. The stress response is also unconscious and out of our control, but it changes heart rate, circulation, digestion, respiration, affects the immune system function, and makes the difference on which kind of hormones are being released. And
Yeah, and then
all of
I
that's
wonder
unconscious.
I wonder how, I just thought of this, if the human is in a stress response during the warm up of the horse.
That's what I mean. I don't
Oh,
know. It could influence the horse, but it's really dependent on perception and individual thresholds and life, right?
right.
It's so unique to every single person and horse that we either have to sort of moderate it in ourself internally. And with horses, That's sort of the whole idea behind the learning frame of mind. That's one of the core concepts of what I teach because all behavioral problems and a whole lot of physical issues have to do with working horses in a stress response.
Good
I
point.
I go, if you can't recognize what that looks like in another person or in your horse, then it's pretty easy to think, we're going about training, we're doing all our tasks, we're dressing in the right outfit, we're making
Mm,
progress, right? And meanwhile, not really recognizing or realizing that our horse is kind of either stressed a lot
mm.
or it's kind of internalized or it's compounding. And then I get the phone call. Well, I was out for a trail ride and all of a sudden,
All of a
and I go,
sudden.
oh, all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Usually that means chronic stress response. Yeah,
Or it's so funny because it's even in the catching of the horse. The same horse that the owner says they can't catch it, and I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back. It's just the experience I take to the situation of when I walk out into the paddock and just wait instead of, what are we coming to the table with in our own mind when we go to warm up? You
right.
know, are we on this clock and the horse is already reading that when you're trying to catch him out in the pasture? Like, holy mother of God, I don't want to be with
I
you.
know, right? Because for humans, it's like tick
Tick
tock,
tock. Yep.
right? And for horses, they're like, much rather go through life in a relaxation response because
Hmm.
they're triggered enough. I
Right.
go, life as a prey animal is stressful enough because you taste good. And so it's like everything triggers a stress response. And when we kind of compound that with how we're working them, or by sort of even punishment, like the whole thing of dominance and submission and
Mm.
punishment and obedience, it's like usually, even if we get compliance, it compounds stress. Or it's certainly, if nothing else, it doesn't resolve the stress.
And I know for both you and I, it's not the task, it's how you do the task.
Yeah,
Or even how you prepare for the task.
yeah.
And I think and we get to be, being predators, and sometimes we get to be linear thinkers. We start that, oh, we've got a trot for 5 minutes, we've got a canter for going each direction for so long, and we kind of that I feel like that's not even being present. That's not even being aware of what's going on underneath you.
Yeah, and that's why I started putting out, just regular training videos and video updates on the 5 horses I have here at my barn right now. And it's under the playlist on my YouTube channel called Wexford Training Barn. And what I show, like Prima, a horse I've had since she was born, she's pushing 32 now. And after her colic surgery, and then she had to have all her incisors removed, right? She had that
Oh,
excessive tooth growth. So the girl had a couple of hard years, right? And she's just been an amazing horse in my life and probably like my most rigorous mentor I've ever had. Because she would always tell me if my idea was dumb and not working.
I have one like that.
Yeah. And she was so funny because she goes, I don't care if he's famous and important. It's still a dumb idea. Like it's like I go, I love that about horses.
Well,
And
that's true. And when we get our mind on a task that we have to do, we tend to forget about
sort
the
of reading,
relationship.
yeah, or if it's working. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because somebody who knows more than me said it would work. So by God, we're going to do it.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. That's how I
Or,
rolled for a long time.
you go to a horse show. Well, I haven't been in a while, but back in the day, all of these people look like they're just mindlessly warming up in the ring.
Yeah, you're just doing this prescribed task, not really
Exactly.
ever recognizing, how's that working for you? Or how's
Right.
that working for your horse? So, anyways, with Prima, her videos, like she pretty much looked like a rescue horse. It was embarrassing to put her first early videos up because with the diet change and the health issues, it was like she looked really bad, really bony, really bad. And all I have done with her, it's coming up on, I think, a year in March. All I have done with her is walk her on the long reins, no riding whatsoever. And it's just been this steady, positive
Mhm.
improvement. Not fast, but she looks like a totally different horse now than she did a year ago. And so it wasn't that she looked as bad as she did from weight loss, although she looked like an undernourished horse. The
Mhm.
first thing that sort of showed her weight was restoring was she had a big belly. I go, well, she's got a big belly, but she got no top line. And what
Right.
that was just muscle atrophy, right? And that top line, like her hindquarters are getting rounder. And even the ribs, like that horse does not see the bottom of a bucket. She can eat as much as she wants to eat. And it's only the belly that showed any sign of weight gain. And then as she started sort of restoring some of her muscle, it was moving up the ribs. So the rib cage started to look less ribby, but the top line still looked like an emaciated horse. And very slowly, it's like sort of worked its way up. And all I've done is the walk.
Right.
All I've done.
And
And this
are we, when we're thinking about fitness or whatever, warming up, whatever, are we really thinking that that is the best for this horse? Or are they balanced when we're doing it? Is anybody thinking about balance?
usually no.
Yeah.
Because balance is supposed to be the result of hard work, like a byproduct. Like
Oh,
that's the
wow.
way we think is if we do the task,
Oh, man.
right, then balance is the side effect, not the not the direct effect. And so that's why this kind of perpetuates. And I go, no, balance can be very direct and it doesn't involve
Mm.
hard, fast movement. And I think the other thing people confuse is that, like, there's sort of a belief that fitness equals cardiovascular fitness. And I
That
go,
moving fast equals that?
like,
That,
getting the heart rate up, getting the
okay.
respiration up, that's what determines fitness. And I go, that's part of it. That's not entirely wrong. It's not untrue. But there's a whole nother part of fitness that has to do with mobility, that has to do with strength, that has to do with flexibility. Like there's a lot of different ways to look at fitness. So when somebody says my horse has to stay fit, they have to work hard every day. I go, I'll look at the body, like you said, they look at the football players and go, well, this person actually might need more strength. This person might need to really focus on mobility. And this person might need to actually focus on cardio fitness or cardiovascular fitness. So it can, like any one of those aspects of fitness could be true.
Right.
And when I'm doing rehab, it's usually the mobility of the body is in the wrong place. I'm having to sort of help the body reorganize to be stable in the parts of the skeleton that are meant to be stable, like you are, and
Hmm.
regain mobility through the limbs, right?
Right.
So focusing on cardio fitness with legs that are trying to do the job of stability is a sure path to lameness and
Hmm.
breakdown.
Yeah.
I go the fit, trotting and cantering is only gonna make things worse, not better. And so if
Right.
we just automatically equate fitness to cardiovascular fitness, that's how exercise actually taxes and depletes the body.
Right. Or I remember Jean-Luc saying one time, you shouldn't be going out and practicing your dressage test every day. You should be
Right.
practicing balance techniques and, things like that, you know, doing those tasks for fitness to stay fit for the event doesn't necessarily keep them fit for the event.
Yeah, and a real life-changing experience for Jean-Luc that he shared was so interesting because I guess as a teenager, and he's an old guy now, the theory, he was a gymnast, right? And he couldn't master this one maneuver, right? And so he had what he, we'll just call it bad coaches that were having him try harder and practice that maneuver more often, trying to help him
Uh,
master it.
hmm
He said, and then he got what he called a good coach. And the good coach said, stop doing that maneuver entirely. And here's what you're going to do instead. You're going to go do girl gymnastics. You're going to get on a balance beam and you're going to do stretching here and there. And you're going to do floor exercises that are very different. And he sent him in a what looked like, I mean, when we think about it with horses, it would be considered a setback.
Oh,
Right? It
yeah,
would
that.
be, oh, it's we're regressing, we're not progressing, we're going back to basics. What's wrong with us? And his good coach had him do that for a long period of time, do completely different work, girls' work, right? And then when he came back, he could just do the maneuver that had sort of stumped him for so long. Right? Because he realized, he goes, that maneuver will never work because you have an imbalance in your back muscles. You need strength here, you need more mobility, more flexibility, and then you'll be able to do it. And that changed how he even looked at horse training.
Mm.
And he said when he got into really upper level riding, right? He was doing Grand Prix and I think, I'm not sure about the Olympics, but I know he rode at a Grand Prix level. And he said so much at Grand Prix level is still that mentality of the bad coach. Try harder,
Oh,
practice
try
more.
harder, practice the task more,
Yeah.
and you'll get it.
And
Mm,
that
wow.
is, that trickles down, right, to the lowest level of horsemanship. That's kind of how we think. So when people say my horse needs to stay fit, I've learned to ask them, what does that mean?
I should ask that. What does that
Yeah.
mean to you? Because I'm confused.
Yeah. What does that mean? And
Yeah.
so it's because fitness, if you look it up in the dictionary, it's kind of general and it can involve
hmm
strength, mobility, flexibility, cardio fitness, all kinds of things. So a weightlifter is fit and a ballerina is very fit, but those are very different uses of the body. So what does that
Right,
mean?
right.
Right? And a long distance, a downhill skier is fit and a cross country skier is fit, but they're kind of different.
Yeah.
They get fit in a different way. So I think that,
That's so fascinating to me because we've just worked in the realm of balance and front, back, left, right, up, down
yeah,
matters more than anything.
anything to you and me.
And I've just been in our little world for
I
so
know.
long that when I got outside of the little world and somebody said, well, I have to keep my horse fit 5 days a week and have somebody else ride it when I can't be there, I'm like, what is that?
Yeah, I know. When somebody said, "Well, I have to warm my horse, I have to trot and canter in order to warm my horse up," inside my head it sounded like screeching wheels and a car crash. 'Cause I was like, "Wait a minute." It took a minute for me to go, "Why would you think that?" Because I had forgotten. I used
Hmm.
to think that at one time. I
Oh,
used to
yeah,
put
me
my
too.
own.
Lunging, the constant lunging before, that was the warm up.
Yeah, and as competitive riders, it's like you and I both had that little Jack Russell sort of go, 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 go.
Yeah,
And I think it really inhibited
a
my
lot.
abilities more than it drew out any talent.
Well, I
So
got bucked off a lot, but
I did too. I got bucked off more times than I can count.
I can't believe I'm still walking and talking.
I know. I always thought I have very, very active guardian angel who makes sure.
That's what it is.
'Cause it is not from using my brain, that's for sure.
I know it's just like I said, that whole what is fit? What is being ready? Maybe that's another way to look at it. How do we accomplish being ready? And I think it's the learning frame of mind to me.
Well, what that really means is, first of all, can we even recognize in
Mhm,
another person a stress response versus a relaxation response?
mhm.
And when it comes to horses, right, can we recognize? And a relaxation response doesn't mean you're taking a nap or you're just sort of hanging out. It is at all speeds, right? So if you think of being in the zone, top athletes, that is the ability to maximize physical activity while you're still in the learning frame of mind, while you're still in
Right,
nervous system cohesion, right? Which means technically the parasympathetic rest and digest nervous system is driving that tugboat internally. And that's why it's called a relaxation response, but it has nothing to do with the level of activity.
right,
So, and it kind of led people to believe that rest and digest meant eat and take a nap. So now
right. And that you're on the
that,
couch.
right.
But it goes back to my work with the Alexander work. What we've found is those of us that are more informed and influenced by the how, the more fit we are because
Oh, and less
we're
pain.
less pain. I'm able at my age to do a lot more than people my age because I'm always in the mode of how am I using myself? Is this
Right.
the best way to use myself for this event?
Yeah, and people just expect to break down with age. And I go, if you get smart about how you do things, which is where you've been a
Mhm.
massive influence on my life, for me personally, I go, I could kind of understand it about horses, but then Alexander technique was like, hello, that means you too. And I went, uh-oh.
Well, yeah, because we all want to keep doing what we want to do.
Yeah, and really learning to like slow down, take little quiet times,
Mm.
like little mental breaks or let some things go. Oh my God, when you're running your own farm, it's like I finally hit a rhythm where I go do what has to be done and then spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes, if nothing else, doing one thing that you would like to get done.
And there you go.
You know what I mean? Because then that also kind of it took the stress away from what had to be done. And it
Right.
started to make the things that needed to be done something I look forward to rather than like, oh my God, it's still on my list and it's not done yet.
It's there. It's not checked off.
It's not checked off. Yeah.
Like our Jack Russell selves. It's not
Yes.
checked off. Oh my God.
Yeah. And the list could really drive stress, even if I wasn't doing it, because it was starting to weigh on me. And
Way,
now
yeah,
it's like the list is, oh, yeah, I don't want to forget about that. I'll get around to it. I'll get that done as soon as I can. But what's
right.
important right now, let me get those things done first.
And I think that that's what they say about the Alexander technique is it even makes a bank robber a better bank robber because it's all about the use of the body. Are we optimizing use
Yeah. Yeah.
in
And
our daily activities?
I think the older I get, the more I pay attention to kind of that fuel indicator of
Oh, that's a
energy,
good one.
right? So I go, okay, there is some truth that energy reduces a little as we age. So it becomes more important to be fuel efficient,
Hmm.
right? And so I go, no, my fuel is my fuel. where am I gonna go before this tank runs empty? Instead of like driving in circles going, oh yeah. And like, if you don't plan your shopping trip, you end up
Zip,
backtracking to
zip, zip, zip.
stores. Yeah, that kind of thing.
And I had a great Alexander teacher say before you go to teach, have a goal and be prepared, but always be directed by the student.
Yeah, because that's kind
So,
of how life really works.
yeah, so with our horses, we can have a goal, we can have a plan, but
Yeah,
pay attention to what they have to say.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, because the one thing we can count on for sure is that horses and people are just unpredictable. I go, that is just a given.
hmm
And what
yeah,
works for one does not work for the other.
necessarily. Yeah,
Yeah. So having a relationship with a horse, it's like we really have to kind of learn to be adaptable. And when we're not, either we end up getting hurt or we end up, constantly in search of that new perfect horse and sell the one we have.
a
Or,
lot of that going on.
yeah, or our horse suffers and gets sick and goes lame. Like
Right,
that's also very possible.
right.
So
Yeah,
it really depends on how we do things a lot more than what we're doing.
yeah, that's my world.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
now
we
when
can
people tell
have that
me,
goal.
I think when people tell me, oh, I have to warm my horse up in trot and canter before anything works, I go, is that how you warm up your car on a cold day? Like it just doesn't make sense if we don't get in our car on a snowy day and floor it in order to warm up the car. Like
Right,
you just let it sit there and find ways to increase circulation. And then when it's warmed up, you go drive it faster.
right.
Yeah.
And you
So,
can, as we know, with it, you've got it all over your YouTube channel. There's so many things we can do at the walk.
oh my God, Hercules, who had he's on that playlist, the Wexford Training Barn, and Hercules had massive behavioral and physical issues. As a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, he was
Mm-hmm.
just, the shallow end of the genetic swimming pool.
Yeah,
It was,
I
he had a lot of issues. And like trotting, I could never get it out of like first gear. You could push him, it didn't matter.
Interesting.
It was like there was no beating this horse into having an energetic trot. And and if you tried, he's named Hercules because nobody can hang on to him. If he's gonna go, he's gonna
He's gonna
go.
go. I've ridden
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
He's like a bulldozer.
Yeah. And so all those years of rehabbing the behavior and the physical issues, 99% of his work was at the walk.
Right.
And he has a beautiful body, really
He's
beautifully
very well
developed.
rounded. It's a good
Yeah,
way to put it. Yeah.
every guy who comes on my farm gravitates straight to
To
Hercules.
him,
Like he is just a guy's horse because he's just big and
big
muscly
and
quarter
bold
horse
and
and
chestnut and
yeah,
uh,
and he's got a lot of chrome,
he's
so
got a lot of
people are
chrome.
yeah. But
I think
Hercules,
that,
it's like all that development and he looks like he is a really fit athletic
and
horse.
it's not like you're taking him out and on the clock, okay, 10 minutes trot,
Yeah, and
10
over
minutes
the
canter.
years,
I mean, it's not that.
no, I would sort of throw in a little bit of trot and canter work here and there, mostly to see what do you have to offer
There you
rather
go.
than thinking, because the first few years I worked with him, I kept doing what everybody else does. I kept thinking if I could just get him to hold the trot long enough or repeat the trot and canter often enough, he's going to figure it out. And it's like, how's that working? And I go, finally, repeating what isn't working is sort of the definition of insanity. So
The
it's like, oh,
insanity theory. Yep.
yeah. So when I changed it, we started making huge progress. And every once in a while, I'd throw in some trot, some canter, see what he had to offer. And I go, ooh, that's not very good yet. Or he would go lame. And so
That's
I
a good
go,
point.
okay.
It's not that good. And so why are, instead of pushing them more into it and asking for them to be unbalanced for longer, why aren't we bringing them back and questioning why is the trot bad?
Yes. And
Why is not, yeah.
once I figured out why the trot was bad, and it took a while to really restore healthy skeletal coordination and work through a lot of
Mhm.
arthritic issues and inflammatory issues as well. But I think on the video updates I do with him now, we're starting back again working on trot.
Mhm.
And I've had moments of glory. I'm like,
Oh,
oh my
yay.
God, it's in there. It's not consistent,
It's
right?
there.
So if I push it too much, I kind of lose it. And he goes back to this shuffly, lethargic little
Hmm.
trot. But if we work on it gradually and I push a little here and back off, and we try a little more and we back off, it's starting to become the better trot with more energy and a little spring is becoming his choice.
Right.
And that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And, I go, all horses that lose forward, they have a level of discomfort in their own body that you have to resolve. I go,
That's a
you
good point.
you cannot just push them into it because it doesn't resolve the underlying root cause.
Right. And
Eh,
discomfort doesn't necessarily mean visible lameness.
Right. And it doesn't
Yeah,
mean pain that the vet can come and fix.
exactly.
I go,
They
sometimes
could
it's
just have an
just,
inner mechanism, and I think we've tuned that out a lot. Is we have an inner mechanism saying, that's not right. You really need to examine that. But usually, what the human does is we push it to the point we hurt ourselves. And then we go, oh my gosh, I
I think
may want
there
to look
is
at the
a
way I do that.
decade. I think there was a full decade of Americans in the no pain, no gain
Oh,
mentality.
yeah,
At least a
that
decade, if
one.
not longer. Yeah.
I think I still hear it, are being
Yeah.
pushed, and being that,
I think it,
keep
yeah.
pushing, keep trotting, he'll work it out.
Yeah. I go, it's filtering out, but it's still in the mix. Yeah.
Mhm.
But that whole thing of no pain, no gain is don't listen to your body, get it done at all costs. And that is the epitome of task-oriented work. And I go, that's exactly what transitions the body from actually building strength and
Mhm.
sustaining health into depleting things,
Right.
right? Taxing health and actually weakening the body. And you think, how can I
Yeah.
weaken the body? And I'm out making myself jog for 20 miles every day. And I go, look back at the growth of orthopedic surgery because it really coincides with the decade of no pain, no gain.
Well, and if you look at it in a body sense, and I was a bodybuilder, and I was working out 6 days a week, 2 to 3 hours a day, and I was not gaining any mass.
Mm.
And what I finally figured out was I wasn't having enough rest time because the kidneys and the liver and all the internal organs are processing and detoxing all the muscular breakdown.
Yeah, that was a oh my God moment when I did the podcast with Dr. Hancock because
Ah,
good, healthy exercise is still going to increase inflammation in the body that has to be
right.
processed through the kidney, the liver,
Hmm.
the whole system has to process out that inflammation, even with very appropriate, suitable exercise.
Exactly.
It's
And
still
it
going to
goes
happen.
into nutrients, calories, water, all of that matters too. But just looking at it and going, working harder does not get necessarily better results.
No, and that can be another reason the body starts releasing stress hormones is
Hmm.
because that inflammation buildup without enough rest, even if you're
Hmm.
doing good exercise, if the inflammation is accumulating, it's going to tip the scale from pleasure hormones to
Hmm.
stress hormones.
Yep.
So, anyways, I think we better wrap it up. We've been yapping for a while because we haven't met.
We haven't seen each other in a while.
I know. So, thanks you guys for joining us. And I'm sorry for the brief intermission in the podcast schedule.
Holidays.
I know, we will get back on track. I also figured, yeah, the holidays is everybody's a little busy anyways.
Mhm.
So, happy 2025, by the way. Welcome to a new year. And we will get back on track. So,
Yep.
thanks everybody for joining us. And we look forward to, any final words, Deb? Any last
No,
thing
I'm
you want to
good.
offer?
Just like, and if you have any questions or topics you want us to cover, we'd love to do that.
Yeah, you can just put it in the comments.
Yes.
Right. All right. Thanks, you guys. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.